Okay, folks, welcome to the meeting. I'm Councillor Steele and I'll be chairing today's subcommittee. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. To introduce officers, to my left is the Planning Officer and the Council's Solicitor. To my right is the Committee Manager. Also within the meeting room are the subcommittee members who are all present, I believe. Yeah, okay, good. So arrangements for dealing with planning applications, an officer's summary and update will be given. Speakers are restricted to 3 minutes with a warning when 30 seconds remain. Members are to note the information given by officers and speakers. Any decisions proposed which is contrary to the recommendations contained in the report will require reasons if the proposal is to refuse and reasons and conditions if the proposal is to approve the application. So can I just remind people to avoid any disruption to the meeting, please ensure your mobile phones and iPads are switched on to silent. And whilst you are not speaking, please put your microphone on mute if you've not already done so. And the fire procedure, if the fire alarm sounds, you'll be directed where to go. Please follow the instructions given by officers. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is to approve a correct record. Sorry. Not the first item, declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Councillor Jefferson.
Please may, through you, Madam Chairman, please may I say I have on item 6 a non-pecuniary interest in that I have family member who lives in Long Lane. It's right at the other end of Long Lane, but it still, I feel, is an interest I need to say. And I have had a couple of emails which I have not just answered, but not had anything else to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Can I just check emails on item 6 or just on other items? Generally, right, yep.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, likewise, I've had an email from Matthew Galvin, which I read in great detail, but did not respond. That's in connection to item number 6.
And Councillor Casson.
Thank you, Chair. Received emails for item number 6. I've also received a phone call from the applicant as well. I did not offer any advice and I still remain impartial. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Norman.
Similarly, Chair, item number 6 received a couple of emails.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jefferson.
May I just say I also received an email, but I didn't reply to it on this occasion on item 6.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Same item 6, didn't respond.
Councillor Robson.
Ditto here.
Councillor Bibb.
Same agenda item 6, received an email which I responded to but didn't express an opinion.
Councillor Dennis. Okay, thank you. I think I must have missed that one. Right.
More.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Heslop.
It's item 6, but exactly the same.
Yeah, I think we should have counted everybody in that one. Yeah. So next item, to approve as a correct record the minutes of the subcommittee meeting held on the 29th of September. Councillor Lee to approve and Councillor Heslop Mullins second. So withdrawals, are there any withdrawals?
There are no withdrawals, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. So we turn to the first item on the agenda. This is item 5. This is variation of condition of approved plans. Gosh, this is difficult to read. It's a long one. This is erection of 30 dwellings on the former site of St Nicholas Junior School in Beverley. Is that sufficient?
So just in terms of updates, Madam Chairman, since the agenda was published, we've received consultation response from the Humber Historic Environment Record advising the archaeological investigations for the development have already been undertaken and no further investigation would be required unless the development was to be proposed in the area identified as amenity green space on the site, which is not what's proposed here. In terms of officer comments, the recommendation remains to defer for the expiry of publicity on the 3rd of November and to then delegate to officers to refuse the application in line with the reason for refusal as set out in the report. And just to be clear regarding this application, this seeks the variation of the approved plans for this application, which, as you say, was for 30 dwellings on the site of the former St Nicholas Junior School, and it relates in general terms to amendments to the plot and car parking layouts, changes to the design and materials of some plots, inclusion of solar panels and alterations to the approved boundary treatments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have only one speaker on this item. This is Miss Fretwell, who's the agent. Okay, you've got the button on. 3 minutes, and you'll be given a reminder when 30 seconds remain. You start when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the applicant. We acknowledge the officer's comments regarding remaining discrepancies between the submitted plans and the as-built development. The applicant has worked to identify any outstanding details, and the plans being considered today, as far as we are aware, are as-built plans. Incorrect tree protection zones identified on the plans during the course of this application have already been resolved. Rather than delay progress on site, we believe it's appropriate to move forward with this variation, which addresses the parking layout, design inaccuracies, and material change. We await further details from the planning and enforcement team with regards to inaccuracies that they believe still exist, and will work with the council to resolve any residual matters when identified. This application seeks to vary condition 22 to reflect amendments that have arisen during construction. These changes respond to practical site realities, updated design guidance, and direct feedback from prospective buyers. The proposed revised parking layout is a direct response to significant market feedback received during the marketing phase. Potential purchasers consistently raise concerns about the distance between allocated parking bays and their homes, citing convenience, security, and family needs. It's therefore proposed to relocate 4 parking spaces to the rear of plots 16 to 19 onto existing tarmac. This is considered a reasonable adjustment to meet market demand and improve the usability of the development. It's also important to acknowledge that the original approved plans contain several inaccuracies, particularly between the 2D and 3D drawings, which affected material specifications and buildability. For example, the configuration for plots 23 to 27 proved structurally unfeasible. The amendments now proposed correct these inaccuracies and ensure the development is safe, deliverable, and visually coherent. Material substitutions, including brick in place of render, reduced long-term maintenance burdens, and in some instances, these materials were shown differently on each plan. As-built changes are consistent with policy ENV1 and the design guidance and contribute to a more robust and locally appropriate scheme. The inclusion of solar panels across the majority of plots is a welcome enhancement, aligning with the RDC Code C6 and supporting the delivery of low-carbon homes. While the officer's report is detailed, we believe a site visit would allow members to fully appreciate the spatial and visual implications of the proposed changes, particularly the revised parking layout. Seeing the site firsthand would provide valuable context and help to inform a balanced decision. We therefore respectfully request that members defer the application to allow for a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fretwell. If you take a seat back there. Thank you. Silence.
No, sorry, we haven't.
No. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify a matter with regards to the speakers? I understood originally that the ward councillor, Councillor Astle, would be speaking on this particular. Was it called in by him? I just wanted to clarify exactly why it wasn't the case that he was here.
Yeah, unfortunately, Councillor Astle isn't available to attend the meeting.
I see. Right. Thank you. Can I just ask Victoria then, just as a corollary of this, obviously on the strength of this, I mean, can I just ask what state of play it is in with regards to the building of the 30 homes? First of all, are they pretty much complete, or are they, if you like, in the process of development? And secondly, the upshot of this on paper doesn't look to be too harmful on paper. But, you know, I noticed obviously that there are some concerns about loss of green space and clearly the actual quality of the design, which I'm very understanding of and clearly would certainly colour the view that I would take on it. But I just wanted to get Victoria's view on the extent of this, because on paper it didn't look to be too much of a problem, but clearly it is from the officer's point of view.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, so just to answer your first question, the development is well underway. There's a fair amount. I didn't get a chance to show you my photograph because I thought we had a second speaker. So if I just flick through them, you can see where we're up to on the site while I talk to you. So these are just some images from the site as it stands today. So you can see some of the blocks are relatively completed. The section along the front of the site is less so. So it's sort of, I don't know what percentage, how far along we would be, but it's fairly well on. You can see quite a few of the buildings have been erected alongside. This is alongside the open space. So that blocks, you know, looks quite complete. So maybe a sort of 3/4 of the way through, something like that, I would say. I know there's been, obviously, they've been marketing the properties, so clearly anticipated completion relatively soon. In terms of the issue with the scheme, there's obviously quite a few changes to the plans. In respect of the design, appearance, materials of the buildings themselves, we don't raise objection to any of those. So that's not at dispute, other than I will say, I do still think, having looked at the photographs and the plans, there are some discrepancies. They're relatively minor, but there are some differences, window design, detailing, things like that. But obviously we have to judge the plans that are in front of us, so that's what we've made a decision on. The issue we have, the recommendation for refusal, is based around the change to the car parking, excuse me, in the site, where previously we had a proposal to change what was previously a car parking area, sorry, not car parking area, playground area, which was going to be transformed back into open space along the boundary of the site where it joins the open space outside the site. And that would be where the proposed new car parking area and obviously the associated access road would come through. And the concern we have with that is just that degrades the quality of the scheme from our perspective. There was obviously going to be this nice area of open space that would be restored back into greenery from playground. That's immediately adjacent to the public open space on the other side of the boundary. So it would have blended quite nicely in with those open areas. And that's the main issue we have with that concern. Although there's only proposed to be 4 parking spaces, it's quite a large area that would actually be there of hard standing, which admittedly is already there. It's old playground, the tarmac is already there, but the approved scheme was going to restore that land into an open area. So we're ending up with a net loss of that sort of greenery and openness to the site, and that's obviously just a general negative of the scheme from our perspective. And whilst there would be some benefits for future occupiers, ultimately the approved scheme still provides the right number of car parking spaces. And obviously in a development such as this, where you've got terraces and apartment style living, you know, it's normal to have a communal parking space and not a parking space necessarily outside your front door. So the area that's on that photographs there is the area we're talking about here, with the open space that was going to be provided where that playground area was, that would then basically stay as it is, albeit obviously tidied up to provide those parking areas.
Thank you. Can I come back, Madam Chair, if that's okay? Can I come back just on the quick?
Yes, of course.
So if we were to refuse this today, the applicant would presumably either have to then revert back to the original proposals or resubmit. Is that where you are with it?
Again, through you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, obviously it'd be the applicant's choice of what they would do. They could reapply, they could revert to the approved scheme, they may wish to appeal, they may wish to come back with an amended, different type of proposal to do. But they obviously would have their original planning permission, so that wouldn't be lost if this was refused. And obviously they would still need to deal with their amendments to the design of the buildings if this was refused, because this application covers all of those changes, even though we would only be refusing it on the open space issue.
Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really totally flummoxed. I'm flummoxed as to why on earth this has come to our committee. It seems to me that the officers have had a handle on this from the very beginning. It's very comprehensive, their assessment of the whole thing. I really can't understand. And where it says it was called to the subcommittee for determination at the request of Councillor Tom Astle on the grounds that future residents are concerned about the parking issues. what future residents think about parking issues is not a planning consideration. So I'm totally flummoxed as to why on earth this has come before this committee. My instinct is to get this off our desk as quickly as we can by saying we support the officer's recommendation on this.
Were you proposing to?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I walked around the site yesterday and it's clear that it's very difficult to imagine where plot 7 is, and online you can't see it, and on your papers you can't read it, print's too small. And I would move that we have a site visit, because this kind of problem does come up, and I think it could help us in probably in future planning disputes to see just exactly how much space is allowed for each car and what green space there is left, because it seems to me there'll be very little green space left. So I would move for a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you. I'd be happy to second Councillor Robson. I think what we need to do is do this properly, and I think the officers have put sufficient in there that we should defer and refuse.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I only have one quick question, but I think it's kind of been answered by my colleagues either side of me. So really, based on the current plans that are submitted, and I'm sure Victoria answered this, the number of allocated parking spaces for the size of the development is planning compliant. Is that correct? Right. So in that instance, I'm happy to support my colleagues on the going with officer's recommendation.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Bibb.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for the officers. Was there any consultation between the applicant and the officers before they actually made these changes, or is it something that they've just done off their own bat?
Yep, through you, Madam Chairman. There was some, yes, there was a previous application that was submitted for variations, which triggered some discussions because of concerns we had. There was then a pre-application inquiry where we advised the design changes to the buildings, etc. we were comfortable with, but we did advise we weren't comfortable with the car parking changes. And obviously the applicant, as is his right to do so, obviously made the application then to test that. They were felt strongly that it was a proposal they wanted, but we have advised them previously that it wouldn't be supported. Hence why we are where we are.
Thank you.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask Victoria, the solar panels and the changes to the materials, etc., are they already in place? Are they already in situ? And therefore it's just the parking which is kind of like at question at the moment?
Yeah, again, through you, Madam Chairman. Yes, the buildings that are at that stage have been carried out as per the proposed amendment. So the solar panels are in where the roofs are on. The material changes have happened where they're, but obviously, like I said, some of the buildings are not much out the ground yet. So those obviously haven't been changed yet. So we're sort of part way there and part way not in terms of what's been done. Obviously, the car parking and the layout of the site has not yet been done because obviously it's a building site at the moment. That'll be the last job, I expect.
May I come back, Chair? I think it's quite an awkward one this in that respect, and because obviously in terms of moving forwards, we would love to continue to have those solar panels and the amendments which the officers are not concerned about kept in place. So if we were to kind of refuse this application, we're kind of losing those aspects as well. It's a shame the application wasn't kind of split into 2 or 3. Because if it was, then we could just keep those items and change the green space, the open space.
We did make that suggestion, but it's proceeded as it stands, so that we did advise that that would be a better route.
Anything else to add before we go to a vote on this one? No. Okay.
It's been proposed and seconded to defer the application as per the officer recommendation for the in order for the expiry of the publicity on the application. And once that's lapsed, providing there's no further issues raised, that the Director of Planning and Development Management be authorised to refuse this application for the reasons as set out in the report. All those in favour of this proposal to defer the application for officer delegation refusal, please raise your hands. And that's unanimous delegate for officer's decision to refuse.
Okay, thank you. Right, so moving on now to item six. This is erection of agricultural commercial storage building. This is at Hollycroft, Long Lane, Woodmansea. Do we have an update on this?
I do, Madam Chairman, thank you. Yep, the application, since the agenda was published, we have received additional information from the applicant in regard to the proposed use of the building and in relation to the Internal Drainage Board's objection and the recommended reasons for refusal. In summary, the applicant proposes that orchard planting will be carried out for small-scale apple juice production. A tree nursery for 1,500 saplings will be planted to supply rural estates, farms, woodland and biodiversity schemes. And beehives will be sited for pollination, small batch honey and beeswax production. Supporting information also refers to the applicant's small shop, which is 1 mile away from the Long Lane site, and that the site is suitable for loading and unloading and offers affordable storage, and that there is a clear need for both storage for commercial and agricultural purposes. It is stated that the site is a 3-acre small holding and former market garden, and an inventory has been provided which shows existing and derelict agricultural buildings and the replacement of dilapidated ones. It is stated that the agricultural business status is not required to justify equipment storage for land management. With regard to drainage, it is stated that the pond on the site is for wildlife, not drainage. Existing drainage discharges to a dike, which was previously used when the site had 2 acres of glasshouses, and that the current surface water output is significantly lower than before. The applicant states that he has maintained the ditch for the first time in 40 years and left sufficient space for access, and he refers to updated Environment Agency flood maps, which show that the shed is mostly in flood zone 1. In addition, further letters of support from members of the public have been received, which reflect the comments made by other members of the public, which are already detailed in the committee report for you. In response to the additional information, the Internal Drainage Board have removed their objection, subject to a condition relating to a 2-metre maintenance strip to the watercourse being maintained. They've also raised no objection to discharge of surface water to the watercourse, though they do confirm that discharge via infiltration would need to be discounted first as the preferred option. Just by way of officer comment in response to that, whilst the applicant's intentions regarding tree planting and use of beehives are noted, it remains the case that officers consider the size and scale of the new building far exceeds what would be required for basic land and orchard nursery management maintenance as described for such a small parcel of land. The latest flood maps do still show the building and most of the application site in flood zone 2, partly within flood zone 3, as described in the officer report. Whilst the removal of the Internal Drainage Board's objection would result in the removal of part of the second reason for refusal with regard to access for maintenance to the watercourse, the reason for refusal relating to the lack of information for surface water disposal needs to remain. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers in this one. So our first speaker is the applicant, Mr. Galvin. Okay, Mr. Galvin, you have 3 minutes. You'll be given a reminder when 30 seconds remain.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. We bought Hollycroft in 2022 in an extremely poor state. Acres of overgrown, dangerous greenhouses and a ramshackle of poorly planned derelict farm buildings. Since then, we've spent a lot of time and money, removed and recycled 26 tonnes of broken glass, cleared and reinstated a land drain, put up fences, installed hedgerows, planted trees, and established a beautiful, thriving meadow grass. Our business is a handcrafted furniture business. My father was a jobbing joiner in Beverley for 60 years, and we continue that legacy, designing and making furniture from sustainably sourced British timbers. We employ local people, we win awards, and we sell our work around the world. We currently employ 10 people in our Beverley shop and our Pocklington workshops. But to sustain and grow the brand based in Beverley, we must also innovate. This winter, we are planting 2,000 under-farmed native broadleaf trees, alder, hazel and rowan, as part of a growing tree nursery. We are also planting 30 heritage apple trees to form a working micro-orchard and introducing beehives for pollination and honey. This is a genuine agricultural sidearm to our business rooted in environmental responsibility. The timber-clad, low-profile building that we've built provides essential equipment and material storage for this work. So the suggestion that there is no agricultural activity on the site is simply not accurate. If we are to strengthen our business in challenging times, we must grow our commercial contract business. This means we need to make and store larger quantities of furniture correctly. Solid timber furniture cannot be stored in regular storage units. It needs stable, controlled conditions. Our purpose-built insulated building is vital in providing affordable storage within 1 mile of our shop in Beverley, enabling us to keep creating jobs in this region. Our development replaces 11,000 square feet of derelict buildings with one smaller 7,000 square foot structure. It reduces roof area and, combined with the removal of the greenhouse footprint, lowers flood risk. This is a low-impact rural development that supports local employment, improves the land, and has full support from all of the statutory consultees, with 22 letters of local support and not a single objection. We are replacing neglect with purpose and long-term stewardship, and I respectfully ask the committee to approve this application and allow us to continue our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Just take a seat back again. And then we have Councillor Henderson. And again, you have 3 minutes with a reminder at 30 seconds.
Good afternoon, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I've called this in under roof section 4 for support and development in villages and countryside. I believe Mr. Galvin to be an honest businessman who misunderstood the phrase like for like in his approach to development of the agricultural site. I grew up in this area, and as a boy I remember there being hundreds and hundreds of unsightly, slanted, dangerous and derelict greenhouses covering this land. As a young man getting the train to Hull, I could see the greenhouses from the train and they looked horrible. I also remember seeing old, unsightly, derelict, unsafe buildings made from old bricks and in some cases asbestos roofs, such as a tractor shed, pigsties, tool and storage buildings and hayloft. All in a state of disrepair, all dangerous as they had no foundations. This is where I believe Mr. Galvin made an error. He believed like for like was to replace acres of derelict greenhouses and 11,000 square feet of these dangerous agriculture and storage buildings and replace them with a safe, environmentally friendly agricultural storage building, which is significantly smaller than the 11,000 square foot building. Mr. Galvin then went on to clear all the glass and debris from the site and plant dozens of trees with hundreds more planned to be planted in the near future. He also planted wildflower, meadow, a wildlife pond and created natural habitats for local wildlife. Bird boxes and bat boxes have been also been installed. All this development has been paid for out of Mr. Galvin's own pocket. And importantly, the building cannot be seen from the main road. It can't be seen from anywhere at the front of the buildings. Mr. Galvin runs an ethical business, a family business that has been in operation for years, bringing in employment into the area where handmade furniture is made from natural products and sold in his Beverley-based shop and online. Customers visit from London and New York to Beverley and bring an income to the area. I'm of the opinion that this development meets key policies within East Rhine and Yorkshire Council strategy. It meets S1, sustainable development using sustainable materials. S2, it addresses climate change, tree planting and wildlife. S4, development of countryside. EC1 supports growth in economy. ENV2 promotes the landscape, and ENV5 it enhances the biodiversity and geodiversity. This is why I'm supporting Mr. Galvin with this retrospective planning appeal. From the documents you have in front of you, I hope you can see that Mr. Galvin has improve the site and develop the countryside in an ethical manner. You can see he has lots of support from the community, and I hope you can offer him the same support which will allow him to continue to develop this site, agricultural site, and create a safe space for nature to thrive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Just take a seat back again. Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair, and an interesting proposal, to say the least. And in all cases, I mean, having been in business all my life, I applaud business people of all persuasions to develop their businesses. And clearly, Mr. Galvin has a very good business by the looks of it. And I think to employ local people is also excellent and very good. However, the problem that I've got with this is purely that this, despite what obviously has been said, I think by the applicant and also Councillor Henderson, this is not an agricultural building as I understand it. This is a storage clearly for commercial purposes of the furniture. It's in open countryside. It's directly against S4. I don't know with hand on heart how, you know, obviously anybody could actually approve it, other than the fact that I don't dispute that there's a genuine purpose by the applicant, and I'm genuinely sorry, but generally I think the position on this committee has to be based on planning reasons only. And it's really difficult, this, because, as I said, I think he's genuine in purpose, but it's directly, as I understand it, against every planning rule that's in our capacity to look at. And clearly S4 and EC1 is definitely adversant here. So I'm going to have to recommend refusal, I'm afraid, purely for that reason. And it's not to belittle or deny that this is a worthy development commercially, but this is simply against planning policy, as I understand it.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Robson.
Thank you, Chair. I echo the words of any possibility of, before actually proposing this, of actually putting in an application for change of use on the land. Because it appears to me that what the land, the proposal of the land, the proposal of what the applicant wants to do on the land is contrary to the actual land use. So my brain tells me, well, maybe you should go for an application for change of use on the land and then go for an application of what to do with it. Am I right here?
Through you, Madam Chairman. Not quite. I mean, change of use of the land would obviously only relate to the land. So then the applicant would be asking for sort of essentially an open storage use, which would be assessed pretty much under the same policies we're looking at here. So you would encounter the same problems. The issue here is, whilst there was development on this site historically, it was horticultural development, which comes under the umbrella of agricultural development, which as we know is sort of treated very differently in policy terms than other types of commercial development, which is you know, ideally planned to be in more sustainable locations in towns and on industrial estates, etc. So there's a key difference in the sort of principle of what's happening on the land. And whilst the applicant clearly has intentions to develop some form of a small scale agricultural or horticultural or forestry type activity here, currently that's not happening. And even if it were, as Councillor Lee said, the proposal is seemingly predominantly for this furniture storage associated with the, you know, obviously the very good business that's being run in Beverley. So we've got this conflict between, you know, the small element of agriculture, which in our view doesn't justify a large commercial storage building in this position because of those policy conflicts.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to Councillor Heslop-Mullins first.
Again, I completely agree with Councillor Lee on this. It is storage of furnishings in the main that's going to be used for this storeroom. It isn't agricultural. I love what he's doing to the land. I think it's a fantastic idea what he's doing to the land with the trees and everything else. But the storage space is industrial. So I would like to second Councillor Lee's refusal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question for Victoria, really. If the applicant changed their plans for the buildings and went more agricultural based and removed the element of storage, was there more of a opportunity that this would then comply with your policy? And also, I'm just trying to understand, you see the footprint exceeds, or get an idea of the scale of the size of the development that's gone in there now compared to what was there before. I've written down the term far exceeds. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, again, again, through you, Madam Chairman, if the proposal was come forward just for agricultural development, when we would judge it as an agricultural development against the policy, but there is still an element, even if it's an agricultural development, of being reasonably necessary and justified. Otherwise, you could literally have loads of sheds around the area for agriculture that aren't really needed for agriculture. So there's still a test, so to speak, a sort of judgment of okay, if it's a small piece of land, why would you have a very large shed? If because normally large sheds are for big tractors or large storage of grain or livestock or something like that. So it wouldn't be a sort of green light to suddenly be acceptable. But clearly, the use of agricultural land for agricultural purposes would be a more appropriate. You're still having to look at things like flood risk and the impact of potentially the flood risk concern we've got with the mounds that have been constructed, which could be diverting floodwater elsewhere at the moment, which is one of our concerns. In terms of the proportion of building that was there and what's there now, I don't think it's that helpful to really make that comparison, because that was horticultural and it has all gone. It's not something we can sort of go back and say, well, if as long as you have 20% of that, it would be okay. It's a very different proposition that we're looking at here as to what was permitted on the site in the past. So there is on one of the plans, it did show, I think I'll just bring it up for you. The ordnance survey, I think, still shows, so that plan there, the darker hatched building is what's been erected. And I think this ordnance survey map, she said, shows you the outline. I think these are the glass houses, these rectangle areas, square area there, and a building up here that were there historically that have gone. And then this smaller range here, this sort of U shape, that's still there. And so that gives you a rough idea of what the Market Garden development was. And like I said, you've then got the development that's been carried out is this one here. So this area of land here is now free of developments. It has been restored into the grassland that was mentioned. And this area here is still developed essentially as it was historically.
I think we have Councillor Robson again, do we?
Thank you, Chair. This is a big shame. It really is a big shame because Heart is saying, yeah, I love it. Let's go for it. And Head is saying, no, we can't, because it breaks all the rules. So I don't really know where to go. I have to fall in line here, I'm afraid. What I wanted to ask the officers, though, is do they know what the availability within, like I say, for instance, 5 mile radius of vacant warehouses as an alternative for the applicant to store furniture?
Through you, Madam Chairman. No, as planning officers, we don't have that information. But obviously, if this application is refused, we would be looking to help the applicant. We can refer them to the economic development team, who are a great team in the East Riding, and hopefully would be able to help find alternatives to premises.
That would make me feel a little bit better about it.
That was certainly something we'd be doing anyway. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Robson. Councillor Bibb.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in a similar position to Councillor Robson, because my head's saying if we comply with policy S4 EC1, because it's not an agricultural building, then this should be an easy decision, but it's far from an easy decision, because the applicant has clearly improved the site. And in my heart, I want to support local businesses, bespoke furniture manufacturers. It's a dying art. The applicant's clearly doing his best. You know, he's setting up a nursery, micro orchard, beehive, wildlife pond. You know, it's gonna have a really positive environmental impact with little or no negative impact on local amenities. He's obviously got a lot of support. There's been no objection. So, yeah, if we're thinking policy, then I suppose we have to refuse. But in my heart, common sense is telling me we should approve this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. The other thing that concerns me is obviously this is a small developer and a small business person, and if we adhere to policy and we refuse this application, what I want to ask the planning team, does that mean that they've got to completely demolish this building and lose all the investment they've put into it? And what ongoing damage does that have? I understand the complications with this application, but the wider ramifications also should be a concern for us and what we, and, you know, and the residents and the people who have these jobs.
Is that something you can address?
I mean, ultimately, this decision itself won't require the applicant to demolish the building. Obviously, that would require enforcement action by the council, and that would be taken on a, you know, the decision will be taken by the enforcement team based on all the facts. Generally speaking, if there's no planning permission and there's harm, which there is here with policy and flood risk, then yes, it would be that we'd be looking to take enforcement action. But we will always see if there's an alternative. The problem here is we have to deal with what's in front of us, and that's this large building for how they've proposed to use it, which is commercial storage and an element of agricultural use as well. And that's how we'd have to make our decision to enforce. So if this is refused, the enforcement team would usually then pick up that reason for refusal and move that into an enforcement notice. That's what normally would happen. Obviously, when development comes forward retrospectively, from a planning point of view, I completely agree with all the comments you've said and the concern about the impact of local business, and we don't want to be seeing that either. But equally, this has been done without planning permission, and we have to treat it as if we would treat any other application. If it was on plan only, we'd be determining it on policy basis, and that's what we should be doing here. Because obviously other people who go ahead without doing it first would expect to be treated the same as someone who takes that risk. So we do have to be a little bit careful. I do understand, and I have my own concern about, you know, not supporting the economic development, but this is an example where we have got quite strong policy objections, as Councillor Lee said at the beginning, not just in respect of policy S4, but also the flood risk concern. And that is a concern to me. We've got a flood risk assessment that doesn't deal with everything it should have done. We don't know the adverse effects, potential adverse effects of a flooding event happening here and the works that have happened to the site with regrading the land and creating mounds and building a building. We don't know whether that could mean somebody else down the road might experience worse flooding than they would have otherwise. So that's quite a big planning concern. And obviously any application normally needs to go through those steps and demonstrate how that's all been addressed. And that hasn't happened in this application. So there are some quite significant, it's not just a sort of quick decision we've made off the back of a, you know, we're not keen on this. It's quite a serious decision. Even, you know, speaking to the applicant before they made the application, the enforcement team had spoken to them. We haven't just knee-jerk said no, we have thought about it very carefully, and unfortunately we've reached, you know, this recommendation. And I do have sympathy with all the members' concerns. I know exactly how you must be feeling, but I think we do have to bear in mind the decisions that we're making and the wider effects for other people who are watching the decision, who might be thinking about their own development, that kind of thing. You know, we do see a lot of retrospective applications, and we all know how difficult they are. So
Sorry, just come back. So thank you for that. I do understand that, but obviously this is the forum for us to have this conversation. It looked more clear cut to me when I sat and read the pieces of paper, but having listened to what people are saying and actually looking in the whites of the eyes of people, it's difficult.
I think there was also concerns from the Drainage Board, weren't there?
yes, so the Drainage Board had two concerns. One was about sort of the physical effect of the mound that's been erected or sort of constructed next to the watercourse. They have said that they're now assured that there is a gap so they can maintain the watercourse. But the issue we still have is drainage. So the applicant has said the drainage is the same as the glass houses, that there's a reduction in overall discharge. But what we don't have is technical details. So we haven't seen that you couldn't use soakaway, which would be the preferred option. So again, that on its own, we wouldn't have refused the application on that ground. We would have been able to engineer essentially a solution. But because obviously the principle was unacceptable and we had the flood risk objection, we have to put all the reasons in that currently mean we would recommend refusal.
Thank you for clearing that. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's really two questions for the officer. Was there any mention of security issues as to why this was wanting to located near to where Mr. Galvin lives? And the other question is, Mr. Galvin mentioned that teak needs special conditions. Has this been explored as to why he needs these, or considers he needs these particular storage facilities for teak that might not be available elsewhere? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chairman. I'm not aware. I don't believe Mr. Galvin actually lives at the site. I think it might be a family member, but I'm not certain about that, so don't take that as read. But I'm not aware it's been suggested that that's the main reason for the development. And in terms of special conditions, that I wasn't aware of that up until now. But again, whether that would be a reason on its own to justify this development when we don't know for certain there wouldn't be an alternative on a more suitable site. So, you know, would be limited weight, I would say, could be given to that consideration, because I don't know what would need to happen to another building to make that also suitable for that kind of storage.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Where I am is that I totally understand where we're coming from in terms of the flooding and other issues which are creating the likelihood of refusal. However, then we look at the building itself and the fact that part of it is going to be used for agricultural uses. If it was to go to appeal, then potentially the inspector may well look favourably upon this, may well. It's probably a balance. And also looking at, the development of this business, which is great for the area. I'm actually going to go a little bit further than Councillor Bibb, and I'm going to propose approval of this application on the grounds of, well, just propose approval with standard conditions, but also, of course, that the drain is able to be maintained and is maintained at a very good level.
Do we have any other questions before we go to a vote? Councillor Casson.
Thank you, Chair. I support Councillor Norman in his findings. I would like to put a condition on that the bunding and the drainage is sorted out before the building comes into use. For employment in the area, I think it's a really good idea. I fully support this, and I think although it's retrospective, I still think it's a good idea. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't know. I think so.
Yeah, so we're going to vote on the first proposal, which was the officer recommendation to refuse the applications. We're just going to look at that one first of all. So it's been proposed and seconded to refuse this application as per the officer recommendation for the reasons as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of the proposal to refuse the application, please raise your hand. That's 5. All those against the proposal to refuse the application, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? We're in a position where we're one less vote, and that's the chair's vote. So I want the chair to tell me how she's voting.
That's a terrible position to be in. And I think in these circumstances, I would have to go with the refusal.
The chair's vote is to refuse, and the chair also has the casting vote, because we're now in a position where we have 6 for and 6 against the proposal. The chair has the casting vote, so the chair's casting vote will be to refuse the application. So the application is refused. Okay, we're back live now.
All right, folks, we're moving on now to item 4, change of use of land and buildings. This is, remind me where it is. Listingbourne, Dreammaker Farm, thank you, in Aldeburgh. Do we have any updates on this?
No updates on this one, Madam Chairman.
And we have only one speaker on this, Mrs. Chambers. There she is. Just press the red button in front of you and you'll be given 3 minutes with a reminder when 30 seconds remain.
Chair and committee, good afternoon. We did not expect to be back so soon, but in our goal to set up a successful breeding enterprise, producing quality stock on a well-kept site, we have also created a safe, organised, accessible farm, and in the words of our visitors, is the perfect environment for children, young people and adults with additional needs. Yeah. In what now feels like a previous life, I spent 12 years in education. I was lucky enough to experience firsthand the difference alternative learning can make when helping children and young people manage and often overcome their fears and anxieties during the transition into high school. Now, even as a farmer, my passion to help, support and educate has not faded. And with the vast majority of our private farm tours now being taken by families that have at least one member with additional needs, I have obtained significant knowledge and understanding of many of their difficulties and conditions. I have been able to adapt each tour in order to provide for those that have mental health conditions, physical disabilities, and who are neurodiverse. The feedback we have received has been both mind-blowing and humbling, and in every single one of these families wishes to return. We appreciate there have been a variety of revisions to the application throughout the process, but these are mainly due to us working hard to conform to the requirements of the various agencies involved. We have taken on board comments from the LPA and their various officers, including those from Highways and Fire and Safety. We have organised a site visit from Hornsey Fire Department, complete with fire tender, and I've had numerous conversations with the planning officer, who is supporting our application and recommending approval today. We have done our absolute best to be proactive by providing improved plans and explanations for all the required changes. These include increasing the width of the farm entrance on Carlton Lane from 3 by 10 to 5 by 10 metres, widening the entire access lane from 3 metres to 3.7 metres, relocating the proposed and existing parking and increasing the size of the hard standing to create a fire tender turning area, increasing parking from 5 to 10 spaces, providing 1 minibus bay and 9 car bays, 2 of which are accessible, adding 1 EV charging station shared between 1 car bay and 1 accessible bay, hedgerow planting to conceal the relocated parking, and a secure undercover bicycle bay. With all of these amendments in mind, we would like to state that the provision we will provide will be on a one-to-one basis, or with small groups not dissimilar in size to those that we've been accommodating safely as private farm tours. We simply do not have the space or facilities to provide for groups larger than those we have specified in our application. We have worked closely with the LPA to produce an application that we hope you will agree will provide a much sought after resource and service to the local area in a safe, well-organised, accessible setting that can meet the specific needs of its users. An application that in its development not only preserves the character of the setting and the surrounding area, but also maintains the original purpose of the land as a quality breeding enterprise. And an application that will ultimately allow a small family business the opportunity to make a difference to the lives of children, young people and adults with additional needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Chambers. Just take us back there. Councillor Bibb.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what an absolutely amazing scheme this is. Care farming. I'll just give you the definition, which actually is on our paper. Providing health, social and educational services to vulnerable people, providing a supervised and structured programme of farming related activities at existing farms. Who wouldn't want that in the East Riding? And the name as well, Dreammaker Farm. I'm sure this is something that will make people's dreams come true. Vulnerable people, neurodiverse people will really benefit from this. So I would like to propose approval based on that.
Thank you, Councillor Bibb. Councillor, I think it was Councillor Jefferson.
Okay. No. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Obviously, in proposing this, I'd be very happy to second, because to me, it's something that is going to be enjoyed by the community, and it's been wonderfully done up to now, and for the kind of people that it's going to be used for, it's a fantastic amenity. So I won't repeat, obviously, what my colleague has just said, but I would second him happily.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Smith.
Nothing more to add, Chair. I was just going to second Councillor Bibb's proposal to approve.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Heslop-Mullen.
Yeah, I think care farming's excellent. I think if they're given a proper education and it's recognisable as a proper education, I think it's brilliant. Couple of questions. What will happen? What will happen to the caravan that's supposed to have been removed on the 14th of May, I think it is?
That's through you, Madam Chairman. The caravan has planning consent to stay there. I can't remember the date now, but it had a 3-year consent, and that was granted in 2024. So it's got another couple of years left for that.
I thought he said he had 1 year, but sorry. And secondly, I noticed that the right of way, they've requested signposting on the new access road. Is that in the conditions? It's on page, come on, tell me, 6, I think. Public right of way. However, we would like the applicant to put warning signs up either side of the crossing to give priority to walkers.
Yeah, again, through you, Madam Chairman. Sorry, I just wanted to check my facts before I gave you the answer to that one. Yes, they have requested that. We don't feel that's a planning related matter. Something, it's not a requirement as a result of this planning application, so it wouldn't be a reasonable thing to condition. But obviously we have, I think, relayed a note to the applicant, and obviously the Public Rights of Way team can liaise with the applicant as well about making sure they keep the priority of way clear, etc. But really it's a sort of separate matter to the proposed development we're looking at here.
Thank you. I had the same question down actually the day this.
Right.
Any more questions, comments?
Can I ask why it's not a planning related matter if it's relating to people on a public right of way having to being crossed, sorry, because the right of way is there first, being crossed by an access road?
The access road is already there, so the public right of way isn't affected. It's still clear and available for use. So the development that's proposed here doesn't propose anything that would interfere or stop use of the right of way. The applicant obviously will be aware of the requirements to keep the right of way clear. It's not, so it would, in my view, would go beyond the planning powers to then require additional signage for an existing right of way that isn't proposed to be. If it was proposing to close the right of way or change the right of way as a result of the application, then it probably would be, but the status quo essentially remains the same at the moment with that. So that's why we wouldn't ask for that.
Thank you.
Okay, can't see any more hands up on this one, so we'll go to the vote.
It's been proposed and seconded to approve this application as per the officer recommendation with the conditions as set out within the officer's report. All those in favour of this proposal to approve, please raise your hand.
Okay, that application's approved, and good luck with it.
Yes, we have.
All right, folks, you take a breath. We're just going to go through the appeals. Are you ready?
What's that?
Okay, members, we just have 2 appeals today. I'll just go through those for you. So the first one is on page 81. This was White House at Fimber. The application was a proposal to create a self-contained domestic annex, and that included extensions to the building to form the annex. This is the site. It's a fairly remote property. It's got an existing large outbuilding. And the proposition, you can see the plans, they're a bit small, but the top of the page there is your existing building. And then the proposal is as per that plan above you there. So you can see quite a large extension. And you probably can't see the site plan very clearly. But it isn't, I think we don't put them in the agenda for you. But basically it was going to create a 2-bedroom, self-contained, essentially a dwelling. So you had a living room, a kitchen, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. It's quite far removed. You can see on this plan here, the house is at the top here. This is the building down here. So the concern with this application, this is a countryside location. The concern was basically that there was tantamount to the creation of a separate dwelling, a 2-bedroom dwelling that wouldn't be compliant with policy because of the large extension. And S4 doesn't provide for significant extensions to buildings to create dwellings in the countryside. The inspector agreed we'd refuse this application solely on that reason, essentially non-compliance with S4. The inspector agreed with our decision and went through the sort of things that you look at when you're considering whether something's an annex, whether it really is a dwelling. And there's a number of different factors, but one of the things is whether it could be easily severed from the main house. You can see in this case, whilst it has a shared access, you could easily just take a spur off for the existing house. They've already got quite a separated garden. So you both would have separate private garden areas. And I think the inspector just felt this was one that went too far beyond being a reasonable incidental use of an annex. So that one was refused and dismissed on the appeal. I don't think that was a committee item, but it was one of Tom's and I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think it was a committee one, so you wouldn't have been familiar with that one. The next one, this is at Preston. So this was again, not a committee item, a delegated. This was a retrospective application. So the property owner had a dwelling there. You can see in the blue line on the main road coming out of Preston. And then the red line little rectangle was some land that he'd purchased from the council actually, and decided to incorporate that into his garden. So there was 2 issues. He needed planning permission to do the change of use of land. It was previously sort of an amenity area. And secondly, he'd erected a boundary treatment around the land in the form of a sort of low wall with what they call Gabion baskets. You'll see it in the photograph in a sec. So it's like little rocks that are put into cages and then fencing above. So we just basically formed that corner into his garden. I haven't got loads of photographs for you, but the members who are familiar with Preston will know this is where you come into Preston from Staithes Road End. You're queuing up for the traffic lights. It's on your left-hand side. So most of the properties along there, they've got brick walls forming boundary treatments. You're in the conservation area here. The concern we had here, we were quite content with the change of use of land, that there was no real problem with that being used for residential use. It was the boundary treatment that we had the problem with. It didn't tie in with anything else in the area. It was very stark and a very alien feature. So we had a concern about the adverse effect on the conservation area and particularly in such a prominent position on a front corner like that. So we refused on basically just really to do with the visual impacts. The inspector agreed with our decision on that one and said it was an inappropriate development on the corner. So that was a refusal, and obviously we're discussion with that applicant about what we're going to do with that, and hopefully we can come up with some solution to get something acceptable so we can go ahead. And that was again not a committee on that one.
Thank you. Yes, I've driven by that a few times. That's it.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you for closing meeting.
Okay.